Welcome to Bonehead Weekly. We have a tight turnaround on this one, so we don't have a topic. We actually have some guests starting to be lined up over the next few weeks, but we don't have a topic for this episode. We didn't have time to do research. Somebody has to get up tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m.
I do. Thank you. I wasn't going to bring that up, but I do. Yeah,
Travel to the land of roly-poly.
that's not why I'm getting up. No, but surely you're not implying. Oh, no, it's I get it. I get it, Chad. I'm fat. Thanks, Chad.
I mean, it's really no way to treat your friend.
No.
Internet.
Being all fat, Chad.
Why is my internet causing the problem? Every time.
If I could get up out of this chair, I'd do something about it.
Why don't you get your dialing wand?
You just wait when The Whale wins Best Oscar for movie ever. People like me be more accepted.
Yeah, but it's all fake. I had another really even darker joke to go on top of that one, but I'll leave it because Bonehead Weekly isn't that quite that dark yet. So, gentlemen, what do you want to talk about? I'm telling you, are you watching The Last of Us?
I am. And the third episode, I guess that's not the last episode, right? Or is the third episode?
Well, the fourth episode just came out yesterday, but I haven't
okay.
Well,
the most recent episode that I saw was the third episode. And honestly, it got to me because of all the parallels it had with isolation. And I'll just be blunt, quite frankly, because my father passed away during COVID. And what happens in that episode, there were a lot of times when I was sitting there going, man, that's dark. God, that's accurate. That's sad. Oh my God. Because without giving anything away, it follows, and it does diverge from the video game in that way. It follows basically what do you do when you're in isolation, and as time goes on and people get ill and things like that. And it hit me harder than I thought it would.
Well, it's a beautiful love story. Chad, have you seen it? Chad's froze again.
Yeah. Yeah, he wasn't going to watch it though, right? Because everybody dies.
I don't know. He's just frozen, and he says his internet is unstable. But it's a beautiful love story.
It is.
I thought it was that time you and Rex Harrison had that, fling for a few years. Oh, Chad's gone.
Well, he's had enough of our nonsense. We knew this day would come. But
are you liking it?
I am. In all honesty, I love the fact that it did what that episode did.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that literally that's an episode where the quote unquote major stars of the show are in it for what, 15 minutes, if that?
At the most.
Because it cuts away and it follows. We're going to give
5 minutes in, and maybe 10. You're right. Maybe 5 minutes in, and then 10 minutes at the end just to set up the pickup truck.
Yeah. And I think the other thing about Last of Us because we all know there's a ton of end of the world shows, right? I mean, there's just been since Walking Dead made money.
Yeah,
we're going to keep going back to that.
We're going to keep going back to them, yeah.
And I obviously, quite frankly, am not offended by that. But honestly, one thing that I actually stopped because I love Nick Offerman.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that came to mind was, and he did that role really well, and I didn't know he wasn't who they originally wanted to cast.
Who did they want in it?
Somebody told me. I'll have to give me a second. I'll look it up. But
this is the point where we turn it over and let Chad talk for a minute, but he's disappeared, and I just texted him and asked him if he were dead.
But the thing about it is, do you know who played that character in the video game? Because it's somebody that you know.
Who?
The original
already dead by the time we meet him in the video game, right?
No, that's where the story is much darker, actually, in the video game. W. Earl Brown played him in the video game. And W. Earl Brown, he is not necessarily a household name, but if you're a big fan of Deadwood, that's Al's bartender.
Yeah.
He's the one that played in the game. In the video game, Joe, it's a much darker story. And this is a spoiler if you haven't played the video game, but it came out in, I don't know, 2013. So if you were waiting, I don't know what to say. It's a decade.
Well,
but in the video game, and it is different than the show, so this isn't a spoiler for the show, but in the video game, you meet so basically you go and you end up teaming up with the guy that's in the hole
Yeah.
without giving anything away. And no, wait, Joe, you may be right. Actually, yes, he is already. Yes,
He's
sorry,
already
you are
dead.
right. But the backstory is.
I tell you, he did.
No, I got two characters confused. But the backstory is much darker because in the game,
Yeah.
he can't take being controlled all the time by the other character, and he goes and he hangs himself, and he purposely tries to destroy the or he's trying to fix up the truck himself so he can escape the controlling of the other person, which is a much darker story, but not, quite frankly, as sad.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Well, yeah, because it's about deciding on, what terms do you go out on, what that looks like, what true love looks like, or maybe not true love, but actual love, where love is a verb, and how
Well,
you serve. And this is going to sound weird considering the relationship, but I do agree with how you service others and how you serve others. Chad, did you see episode 3 of Last of Us?
I haven't even watched episode 1.
I was about to say, remember he said last week.
Well, it's good that Chad missed all this.
But
Yeah.
Joe, the one thing I will say,
I'm planning on starting to catch up this week.
the one thing I will say though about it,
son of
Joe,
a bitch, it froze up again.
did
Oh,
it?
I can see
You're
you.
moving fine now.
Doing fine. It all works great.
I can watch Nightwish on 4K, but I can't talk to you bastards.
I don't know what Nightwish is. All right, finish your point, James.
But what I was going to say, I think what's really interesting about it is, and what really, like, there were so many scenes in it that really got to me, given everything that happened with my own family. But there's that scene where basically he's trying to negotiate. Yeah, take your earphones out, you. Where he's trying to negotiate with him near the end, and he said, just give it some more time. And he has the line, I won't do it exactly.
Somebody can just give me the.
But
when James starts spoiling,
we need you.
Last
Why don't
of
you
Us
shut
for
the
the
fuck
entire
up?
listening
we
audience.
would be done now. I would be done
if you just stop talking.
Anyway, the point being that and he says, what do you think there's going to be a door-to-door MRI specialist come by or something?
Or we couldn't even cure this before
the world ended.
Yeah.
And I think that's it was a really powerful line in some ways, because it gets to that point of, what are you waiting for?
Yeah.
Like if it's not going to get better, and if you're already to the point, because the scene where he's trying to paint still, and he can't,
and little things, he can't enjoy his life.
Yeah, and it was really powerful. So anyway, I don't want to give any more away about it, but
let's get Chad back into the conversation.
This is James. I heard James say, I don't want to give anything away, and he totally gave something away, I'm sure.
Are you going to put your
I'm trying to put it in. It's tangled up.
That's what she said.
Well, yeah, well, I don't think it's long enough to get tangled, bud.
How the hell
just put
does
them
this
in
happen?
the hole. Yeah, no, this makes for great podcast.
Blame the Chinese air
sure
balloon.
people
Tangling
listen.
headphones.
But while figuring out how technology works, Annie Wershing, unfortunately, passed away. She also was in the original game. That's
I
why
put
that
my
episode
headphones
was
in just
dedicated
enough
to her.
time for my internet to freeze, James.
We can still hear you. There you go. You're back now, but you're
back
very
now.
pixelated.
Right. So, all right, let me bust up on another one. Since Chad is a huge fan of Night Court and I'm a huge fan of Night Court, have you watched he's got his Scarefish shirt on. Have you watched the new Night Court?
I haven't got to watch it yet.
I can't make myself watch it.
It's not terrible.
Really?
No. It's not fantastic. But John Larroquette makes the show. And actually, I like Melissa Rauschman.
Yeah.
I think it's, and it
by the way, there's no man at the end of it. It's Rousch.
Yeah, it's Roush. You're right. But it should be man, because she's manly sexy. Anyway, I don't dislike her. I find that she's the daughter of Harry Anderson, but it's not the worst show. I am enjoying it, but I'm not crazy about the other characters. But I'm still enjoying it. It's quick 30. And John Larroquette just kills it every episode.
I've got a similar, I haven't got to see that yet, but I've got a similar feeling toward that 90s show.
So
Kurtwood
I
Smith.
watched the first episode of that and I had a hard time and I never made it past the second.
It's as long as Kurtwood Smith or and I'm blanking on Kitty's the actress that plays Kitty. That's terrible. I should remember that. But
That's
anyway, as long as they're on the screen, it's great. And actually, one of my favorite lines, and I was like, "Yep, that's where we are now." If you were a fan of that '70s show originally, and I really did like that '70s show because Red Foreman actually reminded me of my father a lot. It's a joke that I always make to my kids because they've been watching, like, especially my eldest has been watching that '70s show, or did for a while. And I was like, Red Foreman is much closer to how Dad treated me than how he treats you as the grandfather, as your grandfather. Like he
Well,
was
now-
very much,
Yeah.
it was very much like, I will beat you if I have to, that sort of mentality. Whereas it's, you get sodas and here's candy and go have fun. But I don't think it's in the first episode. I think it's in the second or third episode where they have the line where he looks and he looks at his son and says, "Are you kids having fun? You're upstairs people now."
Right.
That idea that you don't get to go to the basement anymore, you don't get to goof off, you don't get to, and I was like, "Yep, that's the line that show needed." Because that's really what it's about. It's now they're the people that have to be responsible, and they don't get to smoke pot. They've got to be the parents now, and all the things that entails. So I've been having fun with it.
Yeah.
I mean, and by the way, it is, as you like to say, nothing but remember berries. It is, it's, oh, here's a cameo from somebody in the show. Oh, here's Tommy Chong again. Oh, but it got renewed for a second season. I'm hopeful that
and Night Court's renewed for a second season too.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
in that way, I'm having fun.
Right. So, what movie Nightwish you were talking about watching? Was it from 1989?
Yep, that one.
Why are you? I've never heard of it.
I honestly, the only reason I knew it is from the poster.
I don't remember it.
It was on a VH. I just remember seeing the VHS tape and wanting to rent it, and I never did. And of course, it's on Tubi.
I was about to say, is it on Tubi?
Like everything else that was in the video background, you're froze again.
Am I?
Well, no, Chad came back. Well, what I was going to ask is it any good?
Well, here's the question. It's C-level 80s horror movie good. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I rewatched I Come in Peace after we had this conversation the other day.
And I really enjoyed that too.
I enjoyed it kind of too, but Brian Ben was annoying. But
he's the only bad part about that movie. I don't know.
Here's another one. You guys remember My Demon Lover?
Yeah.
Well, so Brandon
Griffith.
Brandon Griffith went up. So I did my whole thing last week was I Come in Peace and how it's a far superior film to My Demon Lover. Old man Griffith doesn't have any taste. So I texted him. I finally went and watched a segment on Scarefest Television, and then, of course, he rips me a new one after I get done with it about how I'm going to fire him. I'm really looking for a lead moderator. If anybody knows anybody, can they contact me? And I appreciated him going back and forth with me. Or he's very serious. I don't know. That could go either way. But I haven't watched My Demon Lover since I was a kid.
I haven't either. I can't remember anything about it.
I can hear my kid. Do you guys mind taking over for a few minutes and talking while I go check?
No, that's fine.
Yeah. So Chad.
Yeah.
This is where you start talking.
What is it? What is it about?
Stop freezing. I can talk to James.
What is it about the 1980s that created all these, I want to say, like, subgenres of horror films?
Yeah. And Bruce Campbell would always, he said that, if you worked in horror in the 80s, you might as well have been working in porn.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, I really have. I've been in this well of I haven't been watching anything new. I've been on Tubi, which is a free streaming service. In case you don't know it, our listeners, I highly recommend creating an account and checking it out. You literally, I love HBO Max because you can go on a deep dive of classic movies. And it's the same, it's the reverse for Tubi. You can go on a deep dive of the lowest budget C, D level movies. And that's what I've been doing for almost a month now. I just randomly find movies. Like I found Brain Damage on Tubi, something I've been wanting to watch since I was a kid again. And you just can't find it anywhere. And it's on Tubi. So, but I can sort of see, back when Bruce Campbell said it, I'm like, no, really? But now that I've been doing this deep dive on these sea-level horror films, I'm like, oh, I see what he's saying.
Yeah, but I think that's it though. I think there's something about, because you find a lot of crap.
Yeah.
You wade through it, but you occasionally find something where you say, if this had a budget, or if this
Yes.
had, and no offense meant to actors, because you do something I can't do, but if this had better actors, if this had better or more appropriate actors to the roles, right?
Well, it's like brain damage. I mean, it's literally an alien, a monster of some kind that attaches to your brainstem and injects you with the most euphoric drug you have ever experienced. And then he gets you to eventually, his whole purpose is to get you hooked on his drug so you can kill people and he can eat their brains.
That's how I want to go out.
And it is such a weird story, especially when the person goes through the euphoria and this little demon thing talking to him. I've just been amazed at some of these plots, like Nightwish. It starts out like not like Flatliners, but it's these people monitoring their dreams to figure out why they can't. I don't even know how to begin with. It starts out with people. You think it's one thing, they're talking about dreams and how nobody can dream about their death, and you think they're going to go that way. Then they go to meet this professor at this remote cabin. Shocker. And they're talking about
remote cabins are big in movies,
right? And they're talking about in the forest. There's these weird animals that have been experimented on and mutated because of the toxic chemicals. I'm like, oh, we're going to go there, and now they're hunting ghosts. And then that's when we started this one. I have no idea where this thing is going, and I am fascinated by the sheer insanity of these '80s horror films that I never experienced as a kid. So,
no. I think it's just one of the things that, like, again, it's finding and how far can the story, like, it's one of the reasons that I'll just give this parallel. Manos, The Hands of Fate as a film is god awful.
Right. Damn near unwatchable.
But if you take the plot idea and ignore the fact they didn't have the budget to make the movie the way it should have been made,
and really, it was just done on a bet.
Yeah.
So
by a fertilizer salesman.
Yeah. Right.
Who had a camera that didn't record audio.
Right.
So 3 people dubbed that entire movie. Anyway, but yeah, no, I think that's the thing though, is that this idea of a cult and and it being accurate. I mean, that was what Manos really was. It was a cult who did have this dark god, who did keep the master alive, who had this servant who was meant to be, the reveal was supposed to be that he was goat-legged. I mean, that, as, I don't know, a Twilight Zone episode, if it was well done, is a fascinating concept.
Right.
The movie we got was not. So I think that's one of the things that, as you're wading through these terrible movies, sometimes you have to go, but there's something there. Like, it may not be done well.
I literally just flip off my brain, which is what I've been wanting to do lately. So that's why I haven't been able to watch The Last of Us, because I know it's well done. I know it's going to be beautifully crafted. I know it's going to be depressing, and I'm not in the mindset. I get in these mindsets of going, do I really want to go down that well? And so
I'll be honest. This is what we were talking about, and I won't repeat what I've already said. People overheard it, but episode 3 got me. Like, it really, really waylaid me.
Yeah, and I'm figuring, I'm like, I sort of did that with Walking Dead. Full disclosure, I never got through season 2 of The Walking Dead, and I never looked back. I got tired of all the death. I'm like,
I'm afraid Last of Us may have that same effect, but again, I think that's one of the things is the like you said, it's well done and it's beautiful, but good Lord. Now that being said, I'll be in my seat for episode 4 eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I'll watch it. I'm going to watch it. I'm literally in the mindset of, I just want to shut my brain off. I don't want to think. So I'm going to watch Tubi. And I'm like, I have all these movies in my HBO. I have all these movies stacked up in my queues on all the services I'm paying for. But Tubi is just a sweet release.
Actually, and talking about this, and I was going to wait till Joe got back to bring this up, but as you are aware, I'm a big fan of Indiana Jones, but I'm also a big fan of all the knockoffs or not knockoffs. I shouldn't say knockoffs, because like Alan Quartermain got the movies with Richard Chamberlain got made because Indiana Jones was a hit. But Alan Quartermain predates Indiana Jones, right?
Yeah, like Firewalker is a ripoff of Indiana Jones.
Yeah, but I saw this in the Walmart DVD TV series collection for years, and I never picked it up. And then I decided I need to pick that up, and it was gone, and so I had to find it on eBay used, and it worked out. Tales of the Golden Monkey.
Yeah.
With Stephen Collins, I know we're not supposed to mention him anymore. He did bad things, but ignoring that, I got the complete series on DVD, and I'm only about 3 episodes in. But honestly, they reuse scenes of it, literally the footage, in Quantum Leap episodes, because it was Belisario. The guy that it was Belisario. But I didn't know this until I got the complete series, and it comes with a book, because it did come out the summer after Raiders was a big hit. And the true story behind that was he pitched it before Indiana Jones, and the networks went, nobody's going to care about an adventure story set in the 1930s. And then when Indiana Jones was a big hit, I think it was ABC, came back and was like, do you still have that show? Can you do that? Can we do that now? And the other story is, it was supposed to be Bruce Boxleitner in the major role.
Oh, really?
But he had already committed to another show that wasn't Indiana Jones ripoff, and he couldn't do it because of his contract. So they got Stephen Collins. And I had wondered for years, I'd heard people make the joke, is that Stephen Collins or Bruce Boxleitner? That's where that joke comes from, is because it was publicly announced that they wanted Bruce Boxleitner and couldn't get him, which, by the way, I was like, how does Stephen Collins feel about that? But anyway, but as far as the show goes, it won an Emmy, but it was very expensive to make, because they're constantly flying a plane from location to locations, and they actually show it. And I'm sure it was for a TV budget of the time, very expensive. But
this is just going to be by the way, this is just officially going to be an Us episode. Joe's getting his kid to sleep, so this should be fun. This is what all the viewers have asked for.
The movie, but the show itself only gets better. And the reason I'm bringing this up, speaking of 80s movies that weren't great, remember Shakma and Roddy McDowall?
How could I forget?
Well, you know what Roddy McDowall is a billion times better in?
What's that?
The TV series Tales of the Golden Monkey. He's not in the pilot. He replaced the actor that was in the pilot. There's a French character named Bon something Louis, which basically whatever the French is for luck. Good luck Louis is what it means.
Yeah.
And the actor, I guess, couldn't come back when the show got green light, so they get Roddy McDowall to play this Frenchman who basically is Quagmire from Family Guy, except he is on this remote island because the French want to execute him. And it's set in the 1930s, and that's why he's called that's why his name translates to Good Luck Louis, because he was on the guillotine and it malfunctioned, so they had to delay his execution, and he escaped.
So did he play, is it like a subtle Frenchman, or is it Roddy McDowall going like full blown, like thick, terrible French accent?
It's pretty subtle as far as that goes, but totally like in the first scene after the pilot, the first scene he's in where Roddy McDowall is playing him, there's a woman sitting across from him, and Stephen Collins' character is having a relapse of malaria and needs help. And he's saying to this woman, he goes, "Oh, are you familiar with the French artist?" Blah. He names a couple French artists, and he goes, "Oh," and she goes, "Oh, yes. It so happens that I happen to have some of their work in my office. If you would like to come to my office." I kid you not. Then they come to him and they're like, "We need help. He's having a relapse." And they're like, "Okay, I've got some quinine. I've got some water." They take it to him
as he eats a mosquito sandwich. I don't know why those just keeps coming back.
The best part is though
The best part
female,
is they try to bite you back.
the female lead of the show later has to go get help from him again and barges in the door without knocking. Roddy McDowall comes out obviously upset because you can guess what they were doing, supposed to be doing in the office.
Yeah.
And he goes out and he goes, there is a procedure among the French, and I am told most of the world, it is called knocking. When one is entering a room where one does not know what is happening, it is called knocking. And she says something back like, oh, well, I believe there's a universal term for what you all are doing. And he goes, yes, we were having an intellectual conversation that we did not need interrupted. But it's Roddy McDowall. And the entire time, I mean, and of course he's kind of a scoundrel, right? Because the French want him dead. You never, or at least 3 episodes in, I haven't found out what all he did. But he also, the French are not supposed to be, during the 1930s, they're kind of German, they're hands off. And he also plays the magistrate that's on this small island that has to book all the flights. And he basically cooks the books so Stephen Collins' character can do whatever he wants. Now, most importantly, though, Chad, most people don't remember this show. But you know what the show inspired?
What's that?
Down to the look of every single character.
Oh, wait. Let me guess. Tailspin.
Yes. Yes, even literally. And by the way, the historical research they did for this show, I love Quantum Leap, but it may have been the best quality production because there's a scene where he has on a jacket and I didn't know what the jacket was. And then again, I'm looking through the little book that came with it going, historians will notice that he wears the jacket of I'm forgetting the term, but basically the Americans that fought in China during World War I. Well, China didn't want to acknowledge that they were having American support, but they gave them these symbols to put on their jacket, and it basically was it contained a chit or whatever that said, if you find this American, do not kill them, bring them back, and we'll pay you for them as an award for serving the empire or whatever, serving the people of China. Honestly, the level of detail in this show is only matched by how phenomenal Roddy McDowall is in this show. Like, Stephen Collins is great, and he's believable as a character. And I mean, it's over the top. He's got a dog with one eye that had a glass eye that he gambles with. I can't make any of this up, but I'm really bummed it only lasted 1 season. But I looked it up, and it was well rated, well liked, but it was just too expensive to make.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw the DVDs on your shelf in your basement, and when we were over there before the new year, and I looked at it and I said, "This looks an awful lot like Tailspin." So I didn't even say anything.
It totally is and I didn't realize how much it was, and then I literally got online, and they were like, "No, this is Tailspin." But I'll be honest, again, for a show that was made in the early 80s, Belisario and his team did a phenomenal level of work because, for instance, he wears his pilot's cap. And I was noticing, I'm like, it's got a hole in it, like right there. Is that supposed to be a bullet wound? But then I was looking closer, and you can see it's faded around it. Like it had something, or it's darker in that one area and faded everywhere else. And it goes on. Eventually, you find out why. It was a symbol that he wore as a pilot, but if you got caught, you were supposed to rip it off so they wouldn't know what team you were or what squadron you were with. And so you get more backstory from reading into the costuming than you get in the show, at least so far from what I've seen. But I was like, this is a lot of fun. So again, diving into weird stuff from the 80s, I have felt it is so much lighter and so much more fun than The Last of Us and things like that. Like I love those shows, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But there is something joyful about watching a dog with an eye patch gambling with an eye, or giving him an eye so he could gamble with it. Yeah. And then, getting punched in the face repeatedly when the gambling goes wrong. It's just fun. And
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. And like, I don't necessarily want the remember berries that South Park and Joe. I'm looking for stuff from back then that is different, because I mean, I don't want to say I'm going to sound like the old guy, but today most of the stuff is, again, it's you have to dig sometimes to find something good, because most of it's just a formulaic
Yeah,
things
well,
that we see every day. And,
yeah,
now you're like, you can go low budget 80s and find, oh, what the hell is this? And it makes no sense. It's the plot is awful. They had no budget, but it's just so the movies we're watching are so weird that you're just enthralled.
no, I was about to say, and the only way you seem to find that now, not the only way, but one of the rarer ways you find it now is when you find something like His
Yeah.
House on Netflix, which is dark and depressing, but it was original. It was fun.
Yeah.
And but you wouldn't know about it. Like I just happened to chance across it, and honestly, I needed background noise, and then I got hooked on it. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
so
Speaking of background noise, I got a quiz for you guys. It's going to require you to open up Google and go to Google Images.
Yeah.
So remember we did our whole episode on wrestlers, and the last question was, what's the most either awful or weirdest gimmick you have ever seen on a wrestler? And I brought up Bastion Booger.
Mhm.
Well, for background noise lately, when I'm working around the house, I just turn it on Peacock and turn on wrestling. By the way, I haven't had a single problem with the internet. I'm sure you guys can hear me. I hadn't had one problem the whole time me and James were here. Joe sits down, my internet freezes up again.
I blame you.
You did.
So anyway, I think I want you to look up a wrestler in Google Images and tell me what his gimmick is. I'm curious if you get it on the first one, because it took me a minute to go, oh my God, I can't believe they did this.
Who is it?
Waylon Mercy.
Waylon Mercy.
Just look at the image and see if you can tell what gimmick they're using for this particular guy.
What's the thing on his forehead? I don't know.
James, can you guess it?
Is he like a guru?
Nope.
No, you got me.
He is a ripoff of Robert De Niro from Cape Fear.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
He comes out with a really bad country accent, all smiles, and then he gets to his opponent, shakes his hand, and then he goes absolutely berserk.
Oh.
And he is an exact ripoff. And they call him a con man. It's just amazing that wrestling does this
WWE.
Stuff. Yes.
Oh, okay.
And he
must.
This is at the same time where they have a wrestler called Isaac Yankem DDS, who is a dentist who comes out in full dental garb and takes it off to wrestle. That is the one that shook me the most. I'm like, how could they? That is so niche.
So
that they create a wrestler. They just say, "Oh, Robert De Niro, okay, Fear. That'll make a good wrestler."
Well, he shouldn't be a dentist. He has weird teeth.
So while I was gone, I'm not for sure what you all talked about, and of course, I'm going to make you.
I talked about the best role that Roddy McDowell ever did.
No, it's just a recap. We talked about Nightwish, and then we talked about how like James is watching this 80s TV show just to kind of.
What 80s TV show is it?
Gold Monkey?
Best TV show that Roddy McDowell ever did. Tales of the Golden Monkey.
Never heard of it.
So, I've been on a deep dive of Tubi, just watching really C-D level action and horror films.
Right. Well, what I was going to say is, and this is for our audience, is I got, I had a little procedure, not a big deal, but I was stuck at home for a couple of weeks and, really stuck at home and trying to catch up on. And at first it was an exciting thing. It's like, I guess the kid that smokes a cigar and his dad puts him in a closet, make him smoke the whole box of cigars. I thought, oh, I can catch up on the last 5 years after having a kid of shit I missed. And I'm telling you, gentlemen, a half to 2/3 of the crap I watched, I didn't miss anything.
Yeah, that's partially why I'm like on this deep dive of just going on Tubi.
Right. And the other day I found myself one night waking up because it was hard to sleep, of watching Predator 2, enjoying the hell out of that. One day I was watching Predator, like I found I Come in Peace after we talked about it, enjoyed that. I'd go to watch something new and get bored with it, like I never finished Black Adam. But there was a show that I had a lot of hopes for, and I don't think it's a bad show, but I just never finished it. And it's called oh crap, I completely forgot the name of it. Is it The Fear or whatever? It's about the ship that sank the British ship in the 1800s when they were trying to find the Northwest Passage. It's not the evil, it's the fee. Oh my goodness, I
Oh,
can't.
are you talking about the one that was on AMC?
Yeah. Did you?
Yeah, it's based on a
ever
true
watch-
story.
Ish. It's based on the novel, kind of.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, it's
they don't
yeah.
really know. And actually, what happened is that they found the boat because it's based on the novel by a guy in 2000 something, and then they found the boat about 6 months or 8 months before the show came out. And because they're not necessarily still for sure because the boat was pretty much intact still underwater. And it almost looked as like if they talked about it in detail, if they went in and just put balloons up, that the ship would float.
Which is what China was trying to do.
With that's your topical joke.
That's my topical joke.
That's your topical joke.
Timely.
But my goodness, I'm so sorry. What's the guy's name in this is killing me. I can't believe that I didn't have any of this stuff ready for you. Sorry, but I just only made like 5 episodes of it. And then they had a second season that was based on something completely different. But have either of you ever watched it?
Nope.
I watched The Terror, by the way. It's
The Terror. Yeah.
Not I watched the first.
And that was the name of the ship. One ship was the Terror, and the other ship was, oh my goodness, I forgot the name.
I watched the first episode, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." And then I wanted to watch it, but I had kids that were young.
Right.
And
it is a little much. It's a little much.
And
it has Jared Harris, one of my favorite actors of all time.
It was one of those things of, I have X amount of time, I'll eventually get to it, but you're telling me I probably don't need to rush back.
Well, I liked it, but have you ever watched something and liked it, but it's still so damn slow?
Yeah.
That's it. And as much as I like the production design, as much as I love all the characters, it's like, for example, when I was watching Chernobyl with Jared Harris, I burned through it in a weekend.
Oh my! By the way, I was going to ask you, have you seen the follow-up they did to that? It's more of a documentary.
No, I haven't watched the more of it because I figure it's just
the
too
Lost
depressing
Tapes
to
or
watch.
whatever. It is depressing, but oh so fascinating, because the reason they were called the Lost Tapes, they thought they had been destroyed because they were so sure that they were going to find a way around it, that they recorded everything. And some of it is brutal to see, but some of it is like, thanks to glorious communism. I mean, it's PR stunt. I don't know.
Right. And so I was trying to think the other day of some of the stuff that I really liked that I found. And there's just not a ton. There was things I liked. Did either one of you watch The Bear? It's on Hulu.
No, I was going to ask you, is that worth watching? Because it's one of those things that I don't want to know if I want to commit.
Yes and no. I like the fact that it's not 42,000 episodes. Yeah. But at the same time, and the acting's great. That kid that was on that show before, it also takes place in Chicago. The one I had a hard time watching, with William H. Macy.
Oh, Shameless.
Shameless. Yeah, I wasn't a huge, just because I know those people and I just don't want to watch a show about them.
By the way, I know we're doing a no topic episode, but you mentioned this.
You watch Justified.
I would say
Justified is nowhere near as.
I want to take it one step further.
Totally different things.
I want to take it one step further, Joe.
What?
I want to take, because I think this is an interesting point. Why is it that Shameless, which is more or less billed as a comedy,
yes,
and it's not, right?
I mean, I guess it is for people who don't really know those people.
But Squidbillies, because we mentioned before, we know Squidbillies, we know those people too.
But it's Squidbillies is funny to me.
Shameless. But what? That's what I mean. What
Shameless
is the
difference?
Just mean. What now?
I think Shameless is just mean. There's no tongue in cheek. There's no really kind of. I just thought it was mean.
No, I just thought it was an interesting point. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
People. No, I'm giving you my answer. I truly just don't think I just want to watch people be mean.
But Early beats the living daylights out of Granny and Rusty.
And I think you get away with a lot when you're a cartoon.
I think that's it too, because we know they're going to be back next episode.
They're going to be back
Uh,
next episode.
I don't know. Did you see Watership Down?
No.
Watership Down is not Squidbillies. It's not a
However,
comedy. That's a drama.
I did watch one thing, which leads me to my last point. And it didn't shake me, but it is the best movie I've ever seen about World War One, and that includes 1917. I preferred it so much more to 1917. I so can't recommend this better than 1917. All Quiet on the German production of All Quiet on the Western Front on Netflix is heartbreaking and so well made and so anti-war. Have either one of you watched it?
Nope.
I'm familiar with the work, but I haven't seen that adaptation yet. It's on my to-do list, but I need time. You know what I need?
I rewatched Meet the Feebles.
I was say, and that's my challenge, Joe, is that quite frankly, I want to watch this stuff, but I know for that one, just knowing what I know of the work.
Well, nobody gets out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know how All Quiet on the Western Front works, and it's not one that I want to like. It's not, I'm in a good mood. I want to sit down and watch.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to sit in the free time that I have, which is
it is
rare.
A brilliant movie.
I understand that.
Made.
I got it, but it's just I don't want we have a little bit of free time. I'm like, I want to watch something that's so goddamn depressing.
I have enjoyed watching William Forsythe punch Stephen Collins in the face way more than I have.
Well, I think I'm going to, speaking of which, speaking of William Forsythe, I think I'm going to go through Craig R. Baxley's whole book. My next is Stone Cold after I watched I Come in Peace. And you're right, Chad. I have no idea why I keep saying I come in peace throughout the movie.
It makes no sense. It makes no damn sense. It bugged the hell out of me. Why does he say that and then immediately suck out their brains?
However, I am going to throw in one last plug.
Because they're going to rest in heavenly peace.
All Quiet on the Western Front on Netflix, German made. There's several English actors in German, so some of it is in English, but a lot of it is dubbed. The movie is amazing.
No, I've heard nothing but good things about it.
Yep.
But
I saw it 1917 in the theater, snuck out and saw it, and it's one. And I'm just telling you, as far as a movie going experience, that was better. It didn't.
Well, I mean, it's based on a classic work.
Well, that and the one shot took me out of the other one. I don't know. It didn't have the. I don't know what it is. I get how technically hard that is, and what an achievement it is, but yeah.
There's an achievement though, but so I've got a question. No topic episode, but it brings up an interesting point. So between oh shoot, it's not Letterkenny. Why can't I remember? What's the name of that place where all the people were trapped and the fishing boats went after them? The other war movie,
Dunkirk.
I don't know why I blanked on Dunkirk.
Of course, Dunkirk's about World War II. But
but I was going to say,
I don't know if it's quite as good as Dunkirk, because Dunkirk is just brilliant because it's here and here and here because you flash forward, then you come back.
If I'm not mistaken, Dunkirk, no soundtrack too, right?
I'm not for sure. I don't remember. I've only ever seen it once. I own it. It's one of those things I want to revisit someday because because to watch it.
I watched.
No one tells a story.
I let my son watch Dunkirk. Just because he got kind of into it, and then I said, let's watch it. And it's really interesting because I think it's one of those things that he's seen, quote unquote, war movies that were fantasy, science fiction type stuff. But it was really interesting for him to see, these people went out on boats, not armed, nothing else, just doing what they could to try to do what they could.
Well, try to get the British Royal Air Force across the.
Yeah. I mean, and you're on
to Germany.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a cool story. So it was really interesting for him to, I don't want to say discover, because he's aware of war as far as a concept.
But I don't think a lot of people that's Dunkirk is not really something they teach a lot in American history classes. Not even American history, but history classes.
I was going to say, and you could make the critique with some validity, and this is not an attack on history teachers in high school, but we also know that history teachers in high school across the nation are facing critiques on what they can teach in the first place. But quite frankly, I believe, Joe, if I'm not mistaken, you and your wife had a conversation. How much time did you spend learning about the Civil War versus how
It's
much
been a
time
whole semester.
and
Yeah.
how much time did she say
Well,
her
she's
class
raised in
spent?
communist Red China, Ohio, and spent 2 weeks like they
Yeah.
wanted. Of course, now she was also a terrible student, so let's not.
But I've heard that story other places too, right?
We
That
spent, yeah, I spent the better part of at least half of seventh grade studying the Civil War. I mean, so
I've
much so that we
learned.
watched most of the Civil War by Ken Burns. That's how I knew who Shelby Foote was when I was in seventh grade.
I would say I learned way more about the Civil War than I did World War One,
Oh yeah,
or quite
World
frankly,
War
even the
II.
American Revolution.
I
Yeah,
remember.
and World
I
War
remember as
II.
a kid. I remember as a kid, we talked about the Civil War and World War II, and then I was like, "Well, wait, why is it two? What happened to one? We never covered it." And
No,
it's,
it was
just because
Ever?
we never covered wool. And again, like Christy, I had a hard time up until high school when I became a straight A student because of other issues that were going on with me. But I never remember talking about World War One, not even in high school. It was World War II because that's when America beat Nazi Germany, not Russia.
Well, yeah,
England.
and that's the thing that kind of gloss over is we didn't have as much of impact on the Europe. In fact, we had very little impact on the European War. Our
Right.
impact was on Japan
Right. Yeah. And then, it's also,
in the Pacific. That was America's impact.
the Revolutionary War and Civil War, which again is all American washed. And we
good
don't
luck
get the full
finding
history.
something about the World War of 1812.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hold on, I
several.
gotta look it up because I found out about. I was doing some history. I was studying history this week.
Did I mention you all should watch All Quiet on the Western Front?
Yes,
I
did.
will. I got to be in a mindset for it. That's one of those things. Like there's.
I was real quick. I was going to say, yeah, we hear about George Washington being so great, but all I can say is everybody look up Own a Judge.
Own a Judge. I can barely rent one.
It will change your perspective of George Washington.
There's a lot that can change. That wooden teeth mythology. No, he took those from slaves.
Yeah.
Whoops, that got left out.
Well, and Own a Judge is his slave that kind of. So there's this whole. We're going to go deep. We're not going to go deep dive, but George Washington, when he moved to was it New Hampshire? He had to move to New Hampshire for the presidency, and New Hampshire was a free state. And New Hampshire had this policy of if a slave comes here and is here for 6 months,
they become free.
that slave is free. So George and Martha would bring their slaves in, and at month 5, make them go all the way back to Mount Vernon, come back and do a reset and come back. And they did that for 7 years before Own a Judge escaped. And even then, Martha and George hunted her down repeatedly. So yeah, it's an interesting case of. I highly recommend looking up the story of Own a Judge. The Dollop did a great episode on it, so I highly recommend it.
I teach the history of higher ed, and that's the stuff that we end up going on tears about, right? I mean, because it's this concept of, oh, there was no school for slaves. Well, technically, we discovered one. There was one. It was, great. When it closed after 12 years, they did everything they could to say, no, that didn't happen, but it happened.
Yeah.
And so I think that's,
and George Washington asked for, upon his death, that all of his slaves be freed. One slave got freed, and the rest Martha kept. And then when Martha died, she gifted them to her grandchildren. So, yeah. So let's talk more about something else.
Well, I have all these. I can't say anything, Chad, because none of it's funny.
Yeah, no.
Thanks for bringing us down. I set the bar really high with All Quiet on the Western Front.
But no, it's just
found a way to take it even lower.
Let's talk about something that you attacked me on Facebook this week.
Oh,
and
Lord.
I get why
I
you
don't
attacked
think I've
me.
attacked anybody.
He didn't attack. It's okay. I am doing this for joking. Calm your ass down.
Yes,
don't snap at me again, sir. It did. Now I'm gonna go cry after this is over. No,
yes,
so
it has nothing to do with me. That's because of your life choices.
Yeah. Brandon posted on Facebook about which Living Dead is the best one.
Yeah, you're wrong on it.
No, I'm not. I am. But no, seriously. So, and tell me if I'm remembering this wrong.
Sure.
2 is the one with the guys in the morgue,
Mhm.
and
It's
the
fun.
the,
It's not
the
very good. It's
but
fun.
it's the zombie in the basement who looks at the kids and goes, brains. And it takes place in
Well,
Louisville.
they said that in the first one too.
But does it take place in part 2 is in Louisville, right?
No, part one's in Louisville.
Part 1's in Louisville. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, maybe I'm mixing that. That's what I was
Part
that's what I was
2
going to
doesn't
talk
even
about
look
because it's been
like
a long
part
time
1.
since I watched them. I wondered if I got them mixed up.
Yeah, part 2 doesn't even look like part 1. The only reason that they brought back, and I can tell this story because Tom Matthews told me the story. The only reason they brought back James, just Jimmy Christmas, Jimmy, what is it? Oh my God, we've met him. Why I can't think of James? It's not James Mason. James, it's one of the greatest character actors, Tom Matthews. They were the 2 morgue attendants who accidentally let out the stuff in the first one. Now, the reason they brought them back is because that movie, Return of the Living Dead, was huge in Japan. And when they were doing the sequel, they wanted a couple, and they really wanted those 2 back, James Karen. They wanted Tom Matthews and Jimmy Karen back, and it made no sense because they're both dead in the movie. And the director didn't want them. That's another reason why it doesn't work, and it's kind of disjointed and all those other reasons.
That's probably what I am thinking because.
But the Japanese market had to have, and they were going to put them in them because apparently, and Tom Matthews even said that he's waiting for the day that they do a show in Japan because Return of the Living Dead is still huge there.
Well, no, and when you said I was insane, because I started thinking about all the scenes, and I'm like, wait, did I just confuse part 1 for part 2? And I think I did.
Well, the only reason I like part 3 slightly better than part 2 is because it's a little different and it's got Melinda Clark.
I don't remember part 3 at all,
She's
so
the
I couldn't
one
even.
she's the one with dark hair, and the girlfriend gets.
Oh, I know who she is, but I don't. I don't remember.
Change and disfigure herself, and there's a lot of body horror stuff in it. It's just a slightly better narrative than the second one. The second one didn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I don't.
So
I
that's
don't.
the reason why I switched them around.
I really don't remember 3 at all, so that's why I ranked. But yeah, I really think when I posted that, because I almost corrected myself. I'm like, no, Joe called me insane. I'm just going to leave it be. So, but yeah, I think
Griffith doesn't know what he's talking about.
What do you mean?
I just like saying Old Man Griffith.
Okay, did he say 2 is better than 1?
No, I just like saying Old Man Griffith doesn't know what he's talking about.
But no, yeah, I really think
he gets flabbergasted. He gets flustered, I should say, when I call him Old Man Griffith.
Well, he doesn't listen to this. So
he listens to no, but that's okay. Maybe Mick Strawn will tell him.
Yeah,
maybe. But yeah, no, I really think I got in the heat of the moment. I think I confused all the scenes that I loved from part 1 and then put them into part 2. So
yeah, I actually had never seen part 2 till just 2 years ago.
Oh, were you serious? I watched both part 1 and 2 when I was a kid because I just remember part 1's the funny story about I was at my cousin's house who's down the street, and they said it happened in Louisville. And he told me that it really happened, and it also happened at the graveyard, which was right down the end of the driveway where we were at, and it scared the piss out of me, and I ran home crying.
Yeah,
because I was like 6 or 7 at the time.
That explains why you're going to cry later.
I didn't handle scary movies that well.
Well, I've got a question about that.
Also, by the way, Louisville in that picture looks a lot like Southern California. Go, James.
What? So y'all have brought up a movie that the sequel doesn't fit the first one, right? Like they're dead.
None of those sequels fit.
Which makes me think about Highlander 2, which leads to the question, how many movies have done that?
A bunch in the 80s.
A bunch.
That's what I say. And this ended up being an 80s themed episode, I guess. What about the 80s made people just go, because I mean, at the end of Highlander, he effectively is a god. And then we jump to Highlander 2, and there's a sphere around the earth because the sphere's depleted, and he created it, but he's growing old.
Foreign markets and distribution. That's exactly, and people pre-sale have to have X, Y, and Z, just like I explained in Return of the Living Dead 2. It's like, well, we have to have those 2 back. And foreign markets. I truly think that's explains Highlander is shot in Rio, almost said Rio de Janeiro, wherever it was, right?
Was Highlander the first one was shot in Rio de Janeiro?
No, Highlander 2. was
Okay,
shot
okay, that
in
makes
South
sense then.
South America.
But
Right.
yeah, I think so. Which
It's not
Highlander
shot-
2, but it's so visually different. I mean, the future where there's the flying
And it's the
guys
same
and
director and same
Oh, I
star.
know.
Both Russell
Yeah.
McKay and Star. Yeah.
But it's a very like if it wasn't Highlander, if it was the adventure of Crazy Old Man, whatever you want to call it, I don't care. But it would have worked better, right? It would have
Absolutely. And I don't think anybody gave two shits in the 80s about continuity.
no. But because I mean, I can remember the first time I saw Highlander 2, and I may have pulled
Superman movies.
I may have
Oh,
pulled
God.
pulled a Chad on this one. I may have saw Highlander 2 before I saw the first one. I think so.
I
think
did
my
see
brother-
her on Highlander 2 before I saw the first one.
I think my
Same
brother
here.
showed me Highlander 2 before because he was like, "You've got to see this scene," and he because I was probably too young to see it, but he let me see the scene where it's the two flying guys, and he beheads one of them, and he becomes young again. That was the first intro I had to Highlander.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, it's a future science fiction, blah, blah, blah. And I went back and watched the first one. I'm like, it's a beautiful love story. But about somebody who literally, I mean, it becomes an adventure film, but his story of
Mhm.
his love and he can't have children. It's beautiful. That being said, you could have made that anything but Highlander, and I would have been more engaged after I saw the first one because I'm like, oh yeah, I like Christopher Lambert. And actually,
Right.
I still argue that scene with Sean Connery in the second one, ignoring everything else about that movie, but where they're trapped, and he does that entire scene where he goes, if you take all the magic in your life and harness it into one moment, and he saves them effectively, but then dies again. I'm like, what a cool scene.
Yeah.
What a cool, but it's not
I
Highlander.
haven't seen it in a long time, James.
I mean, again, it doesn't matter what version of it you watch, but I enjoy Highlander 2 as long as I don't think about Highlander 1.
I like
Right.
Highlander 2 simply because Michael Ironside is at his most insane.
But
Well,
yeah, it is not a good performance. It is one of the most over top performances of all time.
It has
John C.
those,
McGinley does the same thing.
yeah, and it has those scenes though which are just over the top. Everything about that movie is over the top. The entire scene where they're getting shot up and they wake up in the morgue comparing who got shot the most.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not going to count that one, are you? That shouldn't count, right?
Oh my God.
That
I
is
got to go back and watch that movie.
It's on Tubi for free.
Chad. The
The
Renegade.
extended the Renegade version.
Okay.
Oh, the Renegade version is it much better?
I can't remember. It's been a long time since I saw it. I don't remember it being much of an improvement.
Let's say, Joe, that what would you rank Highlander 2, the version that you remember at on a scale of 1 to 10?
I even as a kid thought it was a bad movie.
So what
but
would
I
you rate it
enjoyed
1
some
out
of
of
those.
10? Like 3 maybe?
4.
4?
I give it a 4.
It may hit 5 for you. It may hit 5.
Yeah, I give it a 4. I mean, because you shot the movie, there's just not a lot you can do.
Yeah. I mean, but no, I mean, and I love I mean, none of the Highlander films really have continuity because anytime they try to have them have continuity, you get Highlander 3, Mario Van Peebles is a sorcerer. He kills them and gains all his power. If you watch the trailers for Highlander Endgame, there's an entire scene in the trailer where Connor McLeod does this and he starts to form an energy sphere and so he's got the powers of the wizard. Did that actually make it into the final Highlander Endgame? Nope. But it's in the trailer. So they tried to address that plot where, oh, shouldn't he have the powers of the wizard or whatever now? But he doesn't. He does not.
Yeah. It makes no sense. None of them do. But 80s. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Chad's probably right. We probably do need to start wrapping. Anything else you guys want to recommend for people to watch? Well, like I said, Last of Us is pretty good. And I don't want to really shit on the Night Court. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's still a freaking sitcom. But John Larroquette, there's enough John Larroquette.
No, I'm going to watch it because, quite frankly, I've heard good things about it.
I will eventually watch it. Yeah.
I am enjoying that 90s show, but I'm being honest, and you weren't here for the conversation, Joe. Tales of the Gold Monkey may be the most fun I've had revisiting something, and it is 100%, not 100%, but it's about 80% Roddy McDowall playing a flamboyant French quagmire from Family Guy.
Right.
Just I mean, just luring ladies back to his office and doing things behind closed doors the Roddy McDowell way. Honestly, Bon Chance Louis is the name of the character, and I am sad that show got canceled because I wanted him to have his own spinoff. Like, I want to know the story. If somebody wants to go back and write a new show and have it connect, because like I said, Belisario reused stuff from Golden Monkey throughout almost every one of his shows, and the production values on it. I mean, they're dated now, and the video quality even transferred to DVD isn't great. But there was a lot of research that went into that show. I'm having a blast with that. So I'm with Chad. Let's go back and explore 80s crap.
Yeah.
One
I'm
last
with you.
thing.
And the
Go ahead,
only
Chad.
the only thing new that I can recommend that I've enjoyed is Koala Man. That's it.
I was gonna say, did you watch Koala Man?
Dude, yeah, I watched. I've got one episode left.
I watched the first 3 episodes, and that's why I texted you all. I'm like, "Are y'all watching Koala Man?" I now understand
And-
Australia.
And I've texted you back.
I didn't see it, Chad. I'll be honest. I usually see it, but I didn't.
No, you
But-
don't. No, you see Joe's. And now Joe's going to snap at me for saying that because Joe's got anger issues.
Let's see. Hold on, I'm back.
Poker
here.
Face. While you are arguing,
Oh, I
about
forgot
this,
about Poker Face. I love,
Natasha Leone and Ryan Johnson's new show. She is fantastic in
dude.
it.
I love Poker Face.
Poker Face.
You're right, James. Joe. Thank you. I forgot all about Poker Face. I'm enjoying the hell out of Poker Face. I got my wife hooked on it now. I have to wait for her, and it's an eternity to get her.
I
watching
haven't
it.
finished the second episode because I just get real tired, real easy. I'm tired now, but
Yeah.
I haven't got to
Poker
see
Face.
Poker Face, but I have to because
It's
it
good.
ties into the world of Knives Out. So
It's Natasha Leone doing a Columbo. It's great.
Yeah. yeah,
But it isn't. But that's what they say. But I still don't. She's doing kind of her Columbo, but she's still a totally different story. She's not a detective.
No, it's completely different, but it's her.
But
It's
I
her.
think
It's her.
people are shitting on her for it.
I don't know
I mean,
why.
there was somebody that, not you. I read somebody the other day. It was like, "Oh my God, just go watch the original Columbo," and I was like, "I don't know
It's
that I
not
agree
the same
with that."
thing. It's not the same
That's what
thing.
I'm saying. I don't agree
Yeah.
with the person.
It's
who
just
was
some of
writing that.
it's some of her gestures and vocal hits that are Columbo, but
Yeah.
it's her. I just yeah, no, it's not the same thing.
And yeah, it's almost like it's kind of 80s in the sense of
That's why I like it. That's the only throwback that I'm enjoying because it's a throwback to the Who Done It, or it's not even like because Matlock and Murder She Wrote, they
no.
showed you who murdered them at the beginning.
no, it's kind of 80s in the sense of that she's in trouble. She's on the low road from the law, kind of.
It's
there's
Johnny
one-
Bago.
Yeah, well, Johnny, I didn't watch Johnny Bago, but there's I mean, it's all the way from Hulk to
You froze right when I said Johnny Bago, so I'm assuming everybody's agreeing with me.
all the way from the Hulk to BJ and the Bear. There's
Yeah.
one thing after a week.
if
that
it
they
ain't
get caught up
Renegade,
in.
who cares?
Right. So as she
but-
flings, so it's kind of, I like that part of it.
Yeah.
But my entire thing about that is that I would love if somebody accused me of doing a Columbo, right? I mean, isn't
I
it
know
great?
there's just one reviewer's just shitting, going, "Go watch Columbo because Columbo, still holds up." And it may, I don't know. I haven't watched Columbo in 30
Oh, I
years.
have. I've watched Columbo recently because it's on one of the channels I get down here, and every blue moon I'll catch it.
Is
And
it good still?
because Columbo is a classic, but it's one of those things that my argument there would be, even though I haven't seen Poker Face, is more of a good thing is okay.
And by the way, Columbo was a ripoff. You want to know why? This is a perfect way to end it. This son of a bitch right here, I'm holding up The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. William Peter Blatty swore up and down and hated them forever that the detective in this, who's also in Exorcist 3, but Legion was the book. I can't remember the detective's name. He's played by two different. George C. Scott played him. Was ripped off, and Columbo was ripped off from his detective from this. He blamed them for years and years and years.
By the way,
Sorry,
though,
I
is
wanted
it
to say
is
that
an
out loud. It was a
imitation?
perfect way to kind of segue into that.
Is an imitation the sincerest form of flattery. But if you take anything from me, I'll see you in court.
See you
Burn in
court.
hell.
See you in court, you son of a bitch. And with that, thank you for listening to this episode of Bonehead Weekly.